Welcome to 101. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. They're all big, but this is one of the big ones in the House. We have our local delegate, Carl Anderton. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, brother. How you doing?
Now, you're just back from Annapolis, and I
Yes.
understand there's a 90-day thing that goes on up there where you guys do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, or stop a lot of stuff, depending on your point of view. And, this year was really different, obviously, due to COVID-19. And, if you're watching this 20 years from now, you know all about COVID-19.
It didn't kill us, though.
No, it did not yet. Although I did get a false positive test while I was in session.
Did you?
Yeah, yeah.
That'll ruin your day.
Yeah, they'll get you right here for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got the text. And then I got a call from the speaker's office, and it was a rapid test. You always had to take rapid tests while you were there, and then you would take the real test.
Right.
And the rapid test came back positive, and I was headed to a meeting, and I was like, nope, I guess I'm not going. So you had to go back to the hotel and stay there until the regular test results came in. And of course they came in negative, and then I had to go take it over again so I could have a double negative. And so everything worked out. But it was just in that moment there, your mind's racing. Like, okay, who was I near? Who did I talk to? But we did very well considering, with cases. Some staff members, caught COVID while we were there, but there's a handful of members had some issues. But all in all, they did a really good job, with the parameters they set up. They had the House split.
Right.
They had 71 of us in the State House chamber.
Right.
And then they had 70 of us in the annex. So that way, if there was some kind of spread, at least half the body was separate from each other, and they had some weird seating. They had some people up in the gallery seating, and they had me in the principal's desk. They had me in a temporary desk right next to the speaker's dais, and so the speaker, of course, she was an educator, so she said, "Yeah, does it feel like school?" I said, "Actually, it does." Because I would always have to have my desk next to the.
So she could reach you with a ruler from there.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. But I behaved myself, and we did very well, and it was a lot of. There's some contentious moments dealing with the police reform bills. Hopefully we'll be able to fix some of the bad things that happened next year. Hopefully, we stopped some things. They wanted to take student resource officers out of schools.
Right, which didn't make any sense.
Didn't make any sense at all,
Yeah.
and so we were able to stop that. There were other, while they were focused on our law enforcement officials, that took the focus away from Second Amendment that they normally go after, or agriculture and things of that nature. So a lot of things that folks on the shore hold dear were held harmless because they were going after the people who protect us. So, like I said, speaking with Sheriff Lewis, we're going to see how these things are implemented and what we can fix or attempt to fix next year, moving forward. So,
yeah, I wasn't as alarmed in terms of what I read about the police bill, but certainly our local delegates were.
yeah,
And I know Mary Beth Carrozza, our senator, was very outspoken about it.
yeah.
And the sheriffs have been interviewed about it. I haven't written about it yet. I need to dig into it and really find out more about it. But what are the big concerns there?
Well, it's the repeal of the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights. That is a tool that was put in place, I believe, back in the 70s. Now, we're going to find out as we move forward, actually what truly is detrimental, But on the surface, there are some protections that are gone now. And so instead of, us focusing on going after and making it easier to remove the bad officers, the officers that probably shouldn't be officers in the first place,
Right.
who don't have the mindset for it.
Right.
We've now left our good officers vulnerable, and that's what you shouldn't do. It's very hard to find someone with a good spirit and a good heart that wants to put themselves on the line to protect you, and to make that more difficult, more challenging for them to do their job, will affect all of us indefinitely. Moving forward, it's going to be harder to recruit people with that spirit. And it may end up backfiring, and you may end up with more officers that you don't want because of this.
Right.
People who are just looking for a paycheck. Now, I'm not saying that that's a large number. I'm not saying it's any number, but
Right.
I'm just saying that hypothetical speaking, looking into the future, it's going to be hard to tell as of right now how this is going to play forward. But Sheriff Lewis has his thumb on it, and I definitely go by his opinion.
Right.
I see him to be a forthright, outstanding individual, and so if he speaks it, then there's some validity to it.
Right. Budget finally got to $52 billion, which is I never thought I'd see it, $1 billion a week that we're spending in the state budget.
Yeah.
Revenues are way off because of COVID.
Right.
Expenses are up because of COVID. But you guys were able to pass something that makes sense.
Yeah, it was. I mean, considering everything that happens in this discussion for the rest of the year, you have to take into consideration with where we've been, over the past 12 months, 13 months now. So considering that, yes, it's a good budget. There are some things in there for the shore that help us. The first thing we were able to do was actually override the governor's veto on the disparity grant bill that we passed last year. We've been working on that since 2016. And not only did we pass the bill to permanently restore the funding that was cut, but we get about a 10% increase as well for the county. Of course, that bill helps counties that struggle economically, like Wicomico is one, and it puts you at 75% of the state's average of income tax revenue. And so until we're able to get our job market where it needs to be, we'll be able to make use of this grant. The goal is to not need it.
Right. So the way that works, because we have a lot of poor people, we're not able to tax people the way they are in a lot of counties. So the state sort of helps us out with a grant, disparity grant.
It's more in line with your income tax
Right.
off your paycheck. And so, the lower the wage, the lesser the income tax, in compared with the state average.
Right.
And so until we bring in jobs that pay more, so we can pay our share, we're going to have to use this supplemental funding. Which will keep the county up and running, because without it, I believe the county would have some real insolvency issues.
Yeah, Wicomico really relies on that. It's
Heavily.
a lot of money for the county.
Yes, that's why we made it a priority when we ran back in 2014.
Right.
And to see this thing finally passed, and it's a good feeling knowing that you made a mark, and it was all of us working together. Senator Mathias, when he was in office, helped us the first couple of years with getting temporary bills passed. Senator Eckert and Senator Carrozza were great last session and this session, advocating on behalf of the need of the bill. And of course, Chris and Johnny and Cherie, Wayne, we were all together on this, understanding the need, especially for Wicomico County.
I think it was good, too, that all the state officials and the elected leaders had great respect for the unemployment needs. So unemployment was funded in a way that it needed to be, and I think that's keeping people funded through the pandemic.
It is, but it's still a huge hurdle. We still have people hurting, struggling. They're 6 to 8 weeks out from receiving contact from unemployment. So every day we're still working on that. We've had well over 1,000 people reach out to us needing help with unemployment, and we're getting the checklist checked off, getting everybody squared away one at a time. And so we're going to continue working on it every day until everyone has answers. So there's still some issues, but it's getting better.
Right.
It shouldn't have taken this long to get to that point. But again, we went from, a 4%, 3% unemployment, to double digit overnight. And so, I understand the slow start and catching up, but we're a year into this now. There's no reason why someone struggling with connecting to the unemployment assistance should have to wait.
Right.
They hired all these people, excess people to handle this volume, and we're still dealing with that.
It's interesting, too. Constituent service is always a challenge, but now even more so because so many people are in need, they don't know where to turn, so they call their local delegate. And you being very accessible, they're very tempted to call you first.
I have no problem with that. That's the whole point. That's why we ran for this office. We ran for this office to be able to answer this and to help people, to stand in the gap. That's the whole point of being in public service, to be a servant. And so that's something I take a huge priority in, is making sure when somebody calls that their problem is my problem. If they're struggling, I'm struggling. You know, it's not just a cliche thing. We mean it, and we've walked that walk now for 6 years, and we'll continue to do so no matter where we go in the future.
Where are you on this Kerwin thing? It ended up getting approved in a way.
Right.
$5 billion a year is what it's going to be to fund it. I know personally, when I think about spending money, I can't think of anything better to spend money on if you're going to spend $5 billion a year. But there's a lot of controversy about Kerwin. Do you have a big, sort of a set opinion on this, or are you still trying to work your way through it?
Well, as with all of us, it's changed from year to year. You
Right.
know, the premise is good. You know, I think the timing is not. You know, and I think that's why a lot of us voted against the bill, was not because we didn't support, you know, the language in the legislation or the ideal behind it. It was that we were in the middle of this pandemic and we don't know where we're going, you know, financially. And so it's best sometimes to just kind of hold the line until you know where you are. You know, we still don't know how we're going to come out of this. I'm very hopeful, and I expect us to come out better than we went in, but we're unsure. And so sometimes it's best to kind of hit a pause button, you know, until you get there. And so, you know, a lot of us who voted against the bill, our vote was to signify that aspect, that sometimes it's okay to say, hold on a second. And, you know, but now it's here, it's law. And so, you know, we're hopeful that financially we'll be able to support it.
This year you had a new Senate President, Bill Ferguson,
Yeah,
who was
he's a
new
great guy.
after
Yeah.
the former president died, Mike Miller. And there's been some talk that this year the Democrats just sort of jammed everything down the Republicans' throats. There wasn't the bipartisanship that a lot of Republicans had hoped for.
Right.
Governor had, I think, vetoed more things than ever before, and a lot of those vetoes were overridden. But you've always struck me as someone who can work with everyone. That, you know, you're not that aware of what their party is. You talk about the issues more than the personalities. Was it difficult for you to have be in a sort of a partisan environment for this session?
No, not at all. I don't look at things that way. You know, the question is, you know, what can we do to make life a little better here in Wycomico County? It doesn't matter about party affiliation at that point. To me, the point is, okay, if there's something we can get done for Wycomico, then we're going to work on it. You know, we can still have disagreements. You know, we can disagree on every subject imaginable, but if we agree on something that benefits Wycomico, I'm going to work with you. You know, I think it's that simple, and I think it just comes from, you know, being a former mayor and a council member. You know, it was all nonpartisan.
Right.
You know, working through the Maryland Municipal League was nonpartisan. To this day, I couldn't tell you the people that I served with on the council what their affiliation was. I never asked.
Right.
It wasn't my concern. It was, okay, can we pave this street? Can we fix that sidewalk? You know, can we hire these officers? You know, it's all about trying to improve the quality of life, or the opportunity to have a better quality of life for everybody. And you know, as long as you're not dealing with the big ideological issues, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to work together.
I think I saw that we had a local bill here, the Horizon tax incentive plan for residential housing in downtown Salisbury. So there was an issue. The city needed it. They approved it. The county couldn't quite decide. They were kind of spatting about it a little bit. And I know in the past I've seen lawmakers, if they didn't approve it, they just wouldn't go up there and introduce it to give the authority for the people to do the thing locally, to raise or cut a tax locally, the enabling legislation.
Right.
And it just sort of came back this time from you, like, hey, you need to send this thing to me so I can introduce it if you want it introduced in time. So it wasn't about you and your opinion on it so much. It was like, here I am being an advocate for my people back home to get this thing introduced, and then they can decide whether to pass it or not.
That's the way it should work. I'd like to see everything that way. You know, it's much easier if you support or oppose something to go to your council members and deal with them directly with your either your support or opposition than going to Annapolis and talking to, you know, 188 people, 180 of which you've never met. So I'm a big advocate of everything being decided locally as much as possible. I mean, that's why we did the school board election. You know, folks wanted to be able to elect their school board members and not have them appointed on a partisan basis by the governor, regardless of party affiliation. So we did that, and so this was in that same fashion. You know, I'm not saying whether or not the county has to enact an ordinance, you know, for residential tax incentives or growth or anything like that. They just have the ability to if they want.
Right, you're helping them get the power to do that.
So yeah, but it was unanimous. Chris Adams, who's now the minority whip,
Right.
was a big advocate of that and carried a lot of that water. And I got to give him credit. Wayne Hartman serves on the committee of jurisdiction, and he pulled that bill through. The same thing with Mary Beth on the Senate side. She did a lot of the heavy lifting over there. So it was a true team effort to get anything through that incentivizes, or possibly reduces taxes in Annapolis is an arduous task, and so it took all of us together. It took Cherie as well. Again, she's the number 2 person in the House of Delegates from Wicomico County. For a second, in the Democratic Party, we have the number 2 ranking person in the House of Delegates from Wicomico County.
Right.
In the minority party, in the Republican Party, we have the number 2 person in leadership, the minority whip from Wicomico County. So we have really put ourselves in a good spot moving forward, that, when there are backroom meetings,
Right.
That we have somebody in there that will work on our behalf. And so it is just really neat seeing this Wicomico team click the way it is.
Right. I'm going to have Chris on to talk about it, but
Sure.
I was surprised that he got whip. I didn't think he even wanted whip. And I think of that in the Republican caucus in the State House in Maryland as being a thankless job. But
It is.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard because you've got to keep your caucus, in line. You got to keep those guys in line.
Yeah, it is. But, I spoke with Chris a while back, and I asked him if he was interested, and he was. And I said, well, let's go get it. Let's go get it. We travel in different circles, so I was able to talk to the people in my circle. He talked to the people in his circle. We mustered the votes together, and it was all of us on the Eastern Shore. Seeing someone from the shore in leadership. The last time that happened, it was Jeannie Hadaway.
Right.
Was minority whip up until 8 years ago. And so anytime you can get somebody from the shore in a leadership spot, you want them there. Regardless of who it is, you want them there. And so for us, it just so happened to be somebody that lives 3 miles from me. So
Right.
why not?
Right. You talk about timing. I think this is your 7th session since you've been
Yes.
elected?
Yep.
So that's amazing. 6 years in there, 7 sessions. What have you learned in this time?
Oh, wow. This is a large state with a swath of different opinions on things. And, that not a lot of people knew about life on the shore. We've done a really good job, I think, in explaining that and showing it firsthand, having people come through here. We've had delegates and senators from Baltimore City, from Western Maryland, from, Prince George's County, come down and spend time in Wicomico County to see that it is kind of like Maryland in miniature. You have the urban core, which would be the 95 corridor. We don't have mountains of Western Maryland, so I got nothing for them boys. But we have water access. We're on the bay. And we have ag. We have farm. We're number 1 ag producing county in the state, and so it's been able to see that whereas maybe not so much in the past, but now there are a lot of issues that Wicomico can fit in that they may not have fit in before. Due to us explaining, hey, just because you think this bill is good for Prince George, it actually benefits us. So let's join up, and so we've been doing a lot of that.
Have you been able to spend much time with the governor this year? Are you having the same access because of COVID, or how does that go?
It's not as much as normal. I've seen him a few times, spoke to him, but it's not the same as in previous years. A lot of that's kind of been separated, but we've been able to get our message and have conversations about things we need.
Any feelings about what you would like his future to be? He's term limited. He's only got a year and a half left.
I guess we'll find out. He has a few options. He could run for Senate. He could run in the presidential primary. There's going to be hopefully a lot of good people running on both sides of the aisle. In a few years, maybe Nikki Haley or somebody like that. Maybe they could team up. That would be a pretty dynamic team. But it's hard to tell. We're going to find out together.
The first big Republican has thrown their hat in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly Schultz, who's the Commerce Secretary.
Yeah.
Are you going to support somebody for governor yet, or are you going to wait a little while?
So we're going to see where we go. Kelly's great. She is a Commerce Secretary, so she understands the need and the importance of economic development here in Wicomico County and on the shore. So that's a good thing. The Comptroller, of course, is running on the other side of the aisle, and he also understands that. So what I would like to see is have us positioned that no matter who is in the governor's mansion, that they understand, and they value some of the things we do here, so that way we're not left behind. We don't want to be where we were before Governor Hogan took office. We want to be in a different situation moving forward here on out.
Any thoughts about our local situation in Wycomico County? It feels like our county council is maybe stalled a little bit. I feel like maybe they're not as proactive as they need to be. I don't know. It's budget time. I guess we'll see what's going on through that in terms of what the spending priorities are. And there's a pandemic, so it's kind of hard to get traction on a lot of things. But I keep getting, the feedback I keep getting from people is that the city seems to be organized and doing well and has sort of a plan, and the county is just not in the same boat. And I'm not baiting you. I just didn't know if you had any thoughts about this.
I wouldn't say that exactly. I think it's a different situation for the county. For city government, you just have that one slice of the pie to worry about. When you're on the county council, you have 8 different slices because there's 8 municipalities, and so you have to, you have to plan for funding around all those. And so for them, you're looking at with the state money that's coming down for the pandemic, the federal money that's coming down. How can you utilize that? When will it be released? So you have to prepare your budget around that. So I think you see what you don't see is probably a lot of work happening behind the scenes. And then when they're ready, it'll come out.
You wanted to be county executive at one point. Where's your head on that? You had applied for, after Bob Culver passed away, you had applied for that opening. It was an excruciating process for all of us, but probably for you the most, obviously. Didn't get what you wanted out of that, perhaps. I think you showed yourself to be a good guy through that whole process.
Well, that's a win.
That's a win. But any thoughts, anything you want to reveal to me about that?
It's definitely something we'd be interested in. Depends on, how the people in the county feel. If they want me to be in that position, I'd be happy and honored to go in there and give it all I've got. And we would definitely do that. We would be as open as humanly possible. And it would be a community-led effort, whereas the decisions made, the priorities set by the executive office would come actually from the county itself, through, as you saw, the plan that we had with our focus groups and roundtables of people from across the county coming together, offering input on subjects. And I think that's the best way to move forward. It shouldn't be just somebody ruling with an iron fist. It definitely needs to come from underneath. And so that's how we would do things. Our goal singly would be to make sure that you can live the life you want. If you want to be left alone, we'll leave you alone. If you want, stuff around you, we'll put stuff around you. It's all about, making what some people call different normal. What I mean by different is, different is answering the phone all the time. Making sure every person in the county has this cell phone number, which should be on the bottom third. Different is making your priorities my priority. Not doing what I want, but doing what you want. Different is being equal partners with the county council and legislation. Different is making sure the budget is rebuilt from scratch, allocated properly, and that whatever funds are left over, the county residents decide what we do with it. Do we improve infrastructure? Do we give it back? What do we do with it? So a lot of times I kind of joke around and say, if you think that's different, then get used to different. Because that's going to become normal. It's going to be a full access, doors wide open. You're not going to need seats at the table because there's not going to be a table. We're all going to be together.
I have to say, you love Del Mar, and I've been spending time in Del Mar. I'm actually cutting a yard up there lately.
I know you are, right? Yeah.
And Del Mar, to me, has never looked prettier than it is right now in the spring, certainly. It's just so clean, and it's just got a great vibe. I don't know how it happened, but whatever's going on in Del Mar is a very positive thing.
Well, we got a pretty cool mayor there too. Karen Wells done a great job. She was my deputy mayor, so I'm not saying I had anything to do with it at all.
So you trained her well?
I doubtful. She trained me, but she's definitely community centric, and so having that type of person as a mayor, that's what you want in those leadership positions, are people who care more about you than themselves, and not to be braggadocious about it, just because that is a simple life statement, is that, your priorities matter. And, so we have that, and I think the more that you get that throughout government, the better life's going to be for all of us.
This is the time of year when assembly ends in April, and then you guys sort of do a road show. You're at the Rotaries, and you're at the big Chamber Economic Forum next week, where you talk about everything that happened in the General Assembly. What's the message that you want people to hear about the last session and what's going to happen the next year in Maryland?
Is that we are resilient, and we're going to come out of this better than we went in. There's nobody I believe more in than the people in this county. They truly are my family. I call everybody brother, sister, and I mean it because they are my family. I love every person I meet. And, so our focus will always be not about us, but about us. And so, what are we doing to ensure that all of us are living the life we want to live? Obviously there's some things we have to do better at, and that's attracting business, putting people to work with higher paying jobs. And those are things that we can do if we choose to, and we will. Competing, economically with Sussex County and Worcester County is not going to be an easy task. So in some aspects we need to compete, in some aspects we need to brush them off to the side and form our own identity, and we're doing that. We have the second largest airport in the state, second largest water port in the state, and when I say that in Annapolis, people they look at me funny, like, in Salisbury? And I'm like, absolutely, in Salisbury. And so that those are gems that we need to definitely take advantage of. And I'm not saying we haven't been doing that. I just think we can do more of that. And those are things we will do.
How can people reach you? How can they get a hold of Carl Anderton?
It's easy. I mean, I'm going to be, anywhere I possibly can be. My cell phone number is 443-359-1335. My email address and everything is in the lower third. I'm on Facebook, Twitter. What's the other ones? Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. We've got them all. And so however you feel you want to reach out to me, do so, and I'll immediately respond, and we'll get to work on whatever it is.
He's District 38B. If you have a map and you want to look it up and see, it's handy. Most of us live in his district. He's Carl Anderton, and we're thrilled that he was here today. Thank you so much for being here.
Man, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent newspaper, another edition of One-on-One right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and One-on-One. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.